Meanwhile, Momo's granny Seiko, who wasn't at home, is doing a TV show at a news center. There she plays her role as a spirit medium and interviews a young male idol by asking him questions about him and answering them on his behalf. But the male idol refutes them by answering completely different answers, making everyone laugh as Momo's granny, who is known as Santa Dotteria in the showbiz world. After finishing the TV show, she takes off her spirit medium outfit, revealing a beautiful young figure beneath, which doesn't resemble a granny at all. She heads back home, where she senses something and asks the taxi driver to immediately go back as things are about to get dangerous. She arrives at the property only to find Momo unconscious on the ground, while Turbo Granny jumps towards her to unalive her. But before Turbo Granny can do anything, Seiko steps in and stops her as she comments on how infuriating her granddaughter is. Turbo Granny is enraged that Seiko stopped her from consuming Momo, so she attacks her, but Seiko had already predicted as she dodges the attack, leading Turbo Granny into a spirit circle that she made to capture her. Now that Turbo Granny's speed advantage is eliminated, Seiko can move on to perform her exorcism. But Turbo Granny smirks that if she kills her, then the human that she's possessing will die too. However, Seiko doesn't care at all, as for her granddaughter, she won't even hesitate to unalive a human. Saying this, she performs her exorcism, causing Turbo Granny to burn like fireworks at the summer festival. Later at night, Momo wakes up and immediately looks out for Ken, only to find that she's in her bed. She heads down where she finds Seiko, who is watching her favorite TV show. Seiko asks her if she went to a spiritual, to which Momo answers that she did, and it was with a friend. Seiko asks why would she do that when she doesn't even believe in ghosts, to which Momo answers that things went on, and she decided to visit that place with a friend. Leaving that stuff aside, Momo worryingly asks her, "Where is the evil spirit?" to which Seiko nonchalantly replies that she killed it, which makes Momo devastated, so she can't help but ask if the evil spirit was a young boy wearing glasses. But Seiko shrugs her shoulders and asks why she would care so much, since she doesn't even believe in ghosts and believes her to be a fake spirit medium. Momo realizes that Seiko is taking her revenge for always acting like a jerk and denying psychic stuff and ghosts. So she kneels on the ground and begs Seiko to tell her where Ken is. Seiko won't let her precious granddaughter suffer this much, so she asks her to head to the old storage room, which makes Momo stand up as she gives a middle finger to Seiko while running off outside in a hurry, as she opens the door, revealing a sad-looking Ken eating onigiri while sitting all alone. Momo's worry turns into anger as she can't believe that she worried so much for him. In the meantime, Seiko arrives and asks him if she's in love with Ken. If not, why would she worry so much about him? Momo refutes as she tells her that she only cares because she is the reason why he became like this. She also confesses that she can now use psychic powers. Seiko congratulates her, but tells her how this happened, to which Momo tells her about the aliens. Seiko answers that no way aliens would exist, which causes Momo to think about what criteria she even believes in. After learning what happened, Seiko tells her that Turbo Granny is an extremely old yakai spirit, and that to defeat her, they would have to defeat her on her own turf, which is that dark tunnel. Momo requests her to help them, but Seiko tells them that she can't do anything as that tunnel doesn't fall under her category, so the gods won't help her there. Momo is surprised that stuff like that exists and wonders what they now can do. Seiko decides to train both of them, especially Ken, as he wants him to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and a 10-kilometer run daily, till he can become the second Saitama. The following day, they are training as Momo uses her psychic powers to keep Turbo Granny away from possessing Ken. But Seiko feels that she is relying too much on her eyes and tells her to see with her other senses, which allows Momo to improve her powers by a lot. After the training is finished, Seiko dresses them in special traditional outfits that will protect them and have them head to the tunnel as she hugs Momo for one last time while begging her to come back alive. Ken is excited that he can finally get back his banana that the Turbo Granny took from him, while Momo wants to take revenge because Turbo Granny made them suffer so much. They arrive at the tunnel where the creepy darkness makes them shiver as they both hesitantly step inside, forgetting their earlier excitement. But after getting used to the atmosphere, Momo becomes excited once again. But the Turbo Granny wasn't going to let them have an easy ride, so she appears out of nowhere with her big face, which scares the living crap out of the two of them. Realizing that both ways are blocked, Momo has no choice but to use the special nails technique that she learned from Seiko as she throws the nail at the Turbo Granny's eyes to blind her. But unfortunately, Turbo Granny has small mouths on her eyes, which she uses to eat the nails instead, giving Momo even more creepy vibes. Meanwhile, Ken is about to transform when he realizes that he can't do it anymore, which causes the Turbo Granny to laugh as she tells them that she gave back his banana to him. So the curse is lifted. Momo knows that they can't do anything else, so they can only play by the rules. She challenges Turbo Granny to a race in which the rule is to have her wait 10 minutes before she chases after them. The Turbo Granny accepts the challenge, but when they start to run, she starts counting in a weird way by skipping the seconds by directly going into the minutes zone. Momo calls this cheating, but Turbo Granny comments that she didn't specify the counting sequence. Turbo Granny knows that Momo's spiritual power is dangerous, so she traps her in a solid surface. With her out of the way, she can move on to eating Ken. But he isn't the one to give up so early, so he fights back by biting her chest, which causes Turbo Granny to scream in pain, as she is unable to utilize her powers. She can only possess Ken in order to free herself from him, and after doing so, she moves towards Momo to consume her, but Momo laughs as she can now use her psychic powers without using her eyesight. So she uses her senses to force Turbo Granny out of Ken, and puts her in a muffler shape around Ken's neck. Turbo Granny is so afraid that they will torture her that she calls out for the big gun, which is the real location-bound spirit, the giant river crab. The giant river crab comes out of nowhere and starts chasing after them. So Ken can only use Turbo Granny's powers to transform and run for his life, while holding Momo on his back. However, he can't control his speed, so they fall into a building in the city where the crab keeps on chasing after them. Fortunately, the building was a hot spring, so Momo used the hot water to cook the crab alive, but this wasn't enough. The crab had already used his powers to call on hundreds of local spirits from the entire city to chase after them. This wasn't a big problem, as this city was their turf. To save themselves, Ken can only use his last bit of power to run at full throttle, but his power only lets them run for a while before eventually he runs out of power and falls from the sky. Momo uses her spirit powers to soften their landing, but they are still hit hard, which causes them to lose control of Turbo Granny, who gets free and occupies the giant crab river. While she is planning on how to eat them, Momo calls her a cheater and asks her to go for another race. But this time, the time will be 1 second. Turbo Granny accepts the challenge, but it is her mistake as Momo uses her spirit powers to latch herself on a passing train. Normally the train is faster than the Turbo Granny, but the shift was slightly curved, so it was a bit slow, which allowed Turbo Granny to catch up to them. But Momo smirks as her work is done, and the next step is in Seiko's hand, who is waiting for them to step into her territory. After welcoming them, she ignites the fireworks, which turns both Turbo Granny and the giant crab into ashes, as they also spit out the ashes of young girls whom Seiko identifies to be the girls who were brutally unalived and thrown into the tunnel where Turbo Granny used their resentments to make herself stronger. After everything is over, Ken is feeling sad because Momo, and they will both go on with their usual lives without interacting ever again. But Momo stops him and tells him that she will see him tomorrow, which puts a bright smile on her face, as everything is not over yet.